All right, we're talking about the truck series at Martinsville. And this one, I still get a bit of a nasal issue, so if I sound very nasally, that is why. We finally got a full weekend of racing here. Races on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We do have rain in the area on Friday. Right now, it's still very up in the air if the truck series and the Xfinity series are going to be able to practice and qualify on Friday. It should be out of the way by the time the evening comes around for the truck race, but keep that in mind. We always need to kind of adjust for that, which, look, it's always way easier for me whenever it gets just rained out. I have to do less work. You know, anytime there's a rain out or anytime we lose practice due to a rain, I'm all for it. Like, that's perfectly fine. I got to sit here and do less work. Going to be live all 3 races this weekend, so that'll be nice being live for 3 races in a row. I very rarely even use my damn Truck Series thumbnail just because we haven't had a lot of Truck Series live shows yet. When we look at Martinsville and we look back at the races, and let's just take a look back at the last 5 races from a DFS standpoint. And actually, let me just bring it up real fast. Like, when we look at the last few Martinsville races, for a majority of these events, they were raced as either the second to last or the third to last race in the schedule. Typically, it was the 22nd race of the year. Sometimes it was the 21st. But just recently, last year, it was in the spring. And this year, yet again, it's going to be in the spring. Excuse me. So, while, yes, when we're looking back at some of these races, we do need to be aware that we had championship implications for a lot of these races. However, as we've seen with the Cup Series as well, like, yes, you know, that's a variable that you at least want to consider, but for how the Truck Series just run here with the amount of yellows that we see and the amount of people being spun out and things like that, I don't think it's necessarily a huge thing to worry about. Like, when we're looking back, like, for example, when you look back at the race that was ran in the fall of 2021, if I do believe, I'm trying to think of the one that Gillen got spun on. Let me see. This was the fall race in 2021. We end up having just a huge wreck fest. And then, you know, Gillen and Stuart Friesen get spun coming across the start-finish line, coming to take the white flag. The race ends under yellow. You know, you have Gillen, your main lap leader of the event, being taken out late in this race. Yada, yada, yada. When we look back at, you know, the race in 2020, you know, we have an average green flag run of 9.8 laps. When we look back at last year's race, we have an average green flag run of 10.8 laps. You know, we very rarely have a long run here. And yes, it's due to crashes, but it's also due to back markers and slower cars getting stuck on the track, you know, getting spun out, hitting the wall, not being able to make it back to pit lane, being extremely slow on the track. Specifically, if you get in the wall, you know, down the back straightaway or in 4, and you got substantial damage, if you're going slow down that front straightaway, NASCAR's going to throw the yellow. There's just a situation where we just see a lot of yellows here. We just see a lot of cars get spun. You know, it's not even, you know, purely retaliation, although you do got to remember that this is when Austin Wayne Self tried to kill Nemechek a few years ago under yellow or under green. But this is an event that we lose a lot of fast laps. That's typically what I like to chase the most. And even taking a step back, for whatever reason, you know, look, short tracks have just always been my, like, struggle bus. And I'm hoping, and we've seen improvement, or I've seen improvement, and I'm hoping that my, you know, approach this year will help me get, like, past that. Although last year I played the oppo in the Cup Series for the Martinsville race in the spring. But typically I like to just try and focus on fast laps and not necessarily a lap lead. I know that sounds dumb, but in terms of filling out my lineups, I'm typically focusing on a lap lead. I'm typically focusing on fast laps for, like, you know, 4 out of those 6 drivers and whatnot. For this race here, we are going to lose a substantial amount of fast lap opportunities here, okay? The fact that we're probably going to lose at least 60, if not 70 laps to yellows, maybe slightly less, maybe closer to around. No, it would be. You know, if we run over 25% of this race under yellow, that's 50 right off the bat. If we're getting closer, let's just see the last 2 races here. Last year, It was 35.5 ran under yellow, 43.6 ran under yellow. The year before that was 41. So yeah, we're very easily losing 70, probably like 75, 80 fast laps that just disappear from existence because you don't get fast laps under yellow. So it makes place differential and it makes the laps led be even more important. Now, as I said, when you have an unfortunate situation of like Gillen being taken out at the very end of the race, when he has 18 fast lap points and 33.25 lap led points, then it just shoves in a bunch of place differential. It really just makes finishing position and place differential be a huge thing. So when we look back the last 5 races from a DFS standpoint, when we look and see the amount of place differential coming through, now last year we have William Byron, Johnny Sauter, Ben Rhodes, Ty Majeski, Haley Deegan, and Colby Howard being optimal. The starting positions for these drivers were 32nd, 30th, 3rd, 16th, 31st, and 26th. Now, granted, you would end up having Byron, you would have Ben Rhodes, you would have, and Zane Smith doesn't make the optimal, but you would have Zane Smith being your primary lap leaders, and then you have fast laps pretty much going to Byron, Sauter, Rhodes, Zane Smith, Kyle Busch, Nemechek, and then just some other odd ducks through there. But for the most part, last year's race was, yes, your primary lap leaders, which ended up coming from the rear of the field, and then just place differential really, getting the rest of your lineup outside of Ben Rhodes starting 3rd and finishing 5th with 13.95 fast laps and 11.75 lap led points. When we look back at 2021, as I said, this is the year that Gillen gets spun, Friesen gets spun coming across the line. Your optimal lineup is Zane Smith, Taylor Gray, Tanner Gray, Kligerman, Timmy Hill, Chris Hackert. Starting positions of these drivers: 9th, 39th, 27th, 30th, 24th, and 37th. Now, I always like to look at things of what happens if Gillen doesn't get spun here. It's most likely a situation to where Gillen would have been optimal after starting. Where did he start? He started 2nd. We probably end up pushing out Kligerman because Kligerman comes through, and I understand you can't see this on the screen. Just you know whose free sheet I'm looking at. I'm not paying for it, but you know what I'm looking at. Kligerman would most likely not come through with the place differential, but for the most part, we probably would have still had 4 place differential guys come through. Whatever the case may be, it's really the lap leader and then place differential, just kind of running through the last 3 races here, or the final 3. You had Infinger, Creed, Friesen, Hocevar, Danny Bone, and Ben Rhodes. Starting positions here: 8th, 1st, 18th, 33rd, 19th, and 7th. 4 races ago, you have Chastain, Gillen, Timmy Hill, Jeb Burton, Danny Bone, Jordan Anderson. Starting positions here: 12th, 11th, 22nd, 24th, 19th, and 25th. This situation where Brett Moffitt, who very identical situation to Gillen, basically led the entire race, gets spun late, and is not optimal. And then 5 races ago, we have Kyle Busch, Chastain, Enfinger, Myatt Snyder, Timmy Hill, Austin Theriot, starting 2nd, 10th, 19th, 15th, 23rd, and 26th. And this is a race where Kyle Busch ran away with it, led the whole thing. Anything that wasn't led or any fast lap that wasn't taken by Kyle Busch was taken by Chastain. And then just the place differential needed, or the place differential needed after paying up for Chastain and Kyle Busch finished that. Anyway, I know it doesn't help you not seeing what I'm looking at, but for the most part, I'm just explaining this of why Martinsville in the Truck Series, you can look at this in 2 ways, and clearly the starting grid is important, which is why, look, to be honest, guys, come on. Q is way more important than what most people just want to talk about. Oh, you can't, we can't have an idea of who we want to play, until, or my bad, a lot of people, and I've done this in the past too, of I want a game plan going in, blah, blah, blah. But man, once you get to starting grid, I mean, your plays are really defined and removed just from that in general. As I said, we might end up getting rain on Friday. It's Wednesday right now. Salaries are not out for the Truck Series right now. But for the most part, if we get practice and we're able to get Q in between the top 4 starters, that's probably going to be where my primary lap leaders are going to be. I would actually prefer to get Q in just so we can have more of the slower cars starting in the rear, because we might end up having a pretty chalky slate if we have it coming off of where the Bristol Dirt Race and stuff. Excuse me. Ugh. Let's go through the entry list real fast and talk about drivers and just in general who I want to go to. But really, for the most part, it's going to be focusing on trying to get my main lap leader, and then just kind of playing whoever else I can get with place differential from there. So when we look at when we look at the entry list for the trucks at Martinsville, I think Kyle Busch is the primary guy that you want to chase. He's going to get to the front. Look, it doesn't matter if we start based on coming off of Bristol. If we get Q, whatever the case is, Kyle Busch will be able to get through the field. When we have a lot of yellows and it comes to a driver like Kyle Busch, he'll be able to get through the field. That's just how it is. Ben Rhodes is a guy that I want to target. Ross Chastain, depending on what that car is going to show. We've seen it have more hiccups than normal, whether it be at the road course or whether it be at other tracks. I'm more hesitant on Ross Chastain, but I can very easily understand it. Zane Smith should be extremely fast. I'm very much interested in Nick Sanchez, even William in the 1. There's a lot of young guys here, and look, it really does default to what the truck is and what you have in terms of speed for the truck series. And I understand that I'm not really looking at everybody here, or I'm not really mentioning everybody, but look, it's really those four drivers. Ben Rhodes, Kyle Busch, Nick Sanchez, Zane Smith as your primary interest. Primary interest. You know what I mean? Your main interest at this point in the race or at this point in the week. That's really about it. I think that this field is extremely bad. I think that we're going to see cautions on par, if not slightly higher than what we've seen from the Truck Series at Martinsville. You can look at this in two different ways. You can look at it in a sense of it makes the back markers more viable because, yes, they'll be slow, but hopefully they can make it through wrecks. Or you primarily target good cars in the back that are going to get through the field regardless. Or, kind of going back to what I was going to say here, is just focus on, and honestly, I'd really like to try and get 2 of those 4 drivers that I just mentioned there. Try and nail the lap leader. Really do. If you got to take 2 darts at it, 2 throws at it, 3 at it, 4, I would be very hesitant on. For the Cup Series and Xfinity, I typically like trying to just spin 4 driver positions, trying to nail the primary lap leader. For the Truck Series, as I said before, we have a lack of fast laps out there. We've seen the leader get spun late in this race a lot, so even though they'll lead the entire race, they don't end up being optimal. And so for this race here, I would actually kind of go off hey, let's try and get as many people who can get fast laps and laps as possible. I would probably cap that at 2 or 3. And most likely have the pole sitter or one of the top 4 guys that you believe are going to be fast, or Kyle Busch, because he'll probably be the most expensive. Spin the other 2 positions with either the early lap leader if Kyle Busch isn't starting up front, which would probably either be the pole sitter or somebody in the top 4. Same thing with your third position there. And then the remaining 3 in your lineup just chase place differential. I don't believe we're going to have a really big slate. I don't believe that we're going to have much love for Truck Series DFS here on DraftKings this weekend. Maybe a contest of 7,000 people. I would be shocked if it's anything higher. I don't want it to be lower, but if it would, it wouldn't shock me either. So we're probably dealing with a contest of around 7,000 people with 2 cars going home. Regardless if it rains or queues or whatever, 2 people are going home. I mainly just want to see, not if it gets rained out, but I mainly want to wait until Friday to really start pinpointing down who the place differential plays are going to go, or where I want to go with the place differential plays. Because at that point, yes, we can go through each individual driver. Like De Benedetto will probably start in the back. I like him. Eckes got involved in the wreck last week at Bristol. I would love him. Like, I don't need to go through and tell you to play these certain drivers, these guys here and there. Corey Heim in the 11. Like, of course we want to chase these guys. Connor Jones in the 66. Yeah, of course we want to. So, mainly just going to pump the brakes there. I will mention Steven regarding the just questions that I've had and regarding the fact that Jordan and Nick are involved in the sponsorship. So, at this point, we're kind of done with the Truck Series preview. Let me get in real fast and just very quickly get my caveats out of the way. I've worked on race cars. I've built them. I've been to the track, yada, yada, yada. Everybody knows my thing. So this is not coming from some dude who has never been involved in racing, okay? I've also had my logo on race cars, both paid for and not paid for. I've sponsored series. I've sponsored drivers, okay? So I'm coming from that avenue as well. Okay, I'm also coming from the avenue of each week we collectively, as DFS players, don't necessarily care about the drivers, okay? We all pretty much shit on Chris Wright each and every week. We all pretty much say so-and-so is an idiot each and every week, okay? If I look at a driver and I look at the equipment and I look at them from an analytical point of view of would I put money on them or would I not put money on them, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm not trying to be mean or belittle people or whatever. I look at this from a financial investment point of view when I build my lineups, when I put money on drivers trying to get through the field, surviving, blah, blah, blah. So when we look at Steven in the 22 car, and I asked, this one thing about me is I'm very straightforward. When I saw the news come out that Jordan and Nick were supporting and sponsoring a truck this week, or last week rather, or this week, but news came out last week. I was both happy for Jordan and confused at the same time of why would you want to burn money like that? In my head, like why? And I texted them. I was like, why would you want to sponsor one of the more underfunded teams in the Truck Series? I feel like there's way better ways to spend your money, and things like that. And I understand, it's cool to have your stuff on a car. That's why, like, I've been there. I completely understand. And which you can go back and listen to both last week's last week's video of Stacking Denny's and this week's video of Stacking Denny's. But, I asked Jordan, long TLDR, he reached out. He wanted to run this race. He reached out to Nick, see if he could get anything done. And they were able to get a little money for him. And at that point, they not resorted to, because I would be doing the same thing. Like, look, I want to go racing next year. Of course, I'm going to be doing the same thing. Crowdfunding, be like, hey, guys, you want to sponsor me? Yeah, anybody want to help me out? I mean, I do the same thing here. Like, hey, guys, do you want to join the Patreon? Thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for always tuning in to live shows, blah, blah, blah. But the fact that, like, I was like, what the hell is going on here last week? I was like, first off, Nick and Jordan come out of nowhere. And then we get the other tout, sponsoring the car as well. We're crowdfunding the money for Steven. I was like, this just seems a bit fishy to me. Like what's going on here? There's a lot of fucking red flags going on, man. This stuff don't just come up out of nowhere. Like, what's going on? So anyway, yeah, I asked him. And I asked Jordan specific questions, and he didn't give me an actual number, but I asked him, hey, what are you guys paying? Like, not in the sense of, ooh, give me the scoop, but look, man, I've been there. I know what it's like to run a car. I know what it's like to, to have people sponsoring a car. And I know how expensive it is to race. I was like, hey, what do you guys got? And Jordan didn't give me an exact number, but it was a situation where, they were crowdfunding for the rest. And Steven was going to have to, try and get money from outside sources to get this car, and it, yet again, it goes to, crowdfunding of, hey, shoot me some money on Venmo. Let's just kind of run around, try and find some sponsorships, yada, yada, yada. So long story short, Reum was originally slated to run the 22. Steven is going to hop in the 22 here. Not exactly sure why, to be honest, 100%. Doing clown math in my head, I would be shooketh. I would be shocked. I would be floored if Steven was bringing $7,000 or more to this endeavor. Now, he did state in the latest Stacking Denny's that he's looking towards running a few more races this year. He said, and this is just me repeating things that's already out there. He says that he's selling his own car to yet again cover some races and stuff. So I'm assuming, because he's got a Dodge, I'm assuming you sell that for $26,000 or so, if not a little bit less, whatever the case may be. Yeah, you can cover some races in the back of the field and stuff. But for this race here, as I said, I would be absolutely shocked if he was bringing more than $7,000 in sponsorships or support. I think it's more realistically close to 5 or 4. If it's anything more than that, good on him. But in terms of DFS, there's no way in hell I'm playing Steven in the 22. And I'm mainly just going on this little talk here just because I've had several people over the last week DM me on Twitter, ask me on Discord, hey, what's up with this? Can you get the scoop on this or whatever? And it's not really a scoop. I just kind of went straight up to Jordan and asked, hey, how'd this kind of come together? What's going on there? Secondly, I asked him, what does NASCAR want to do, or what do they do with the whole, driver-related gambling and stuff? Didn't get a question from Jordan. Didn't get an answer from Jordan. Don't think he necessarily has an answer, but I asked him. So I'm very curious about that. I doubt any reporter will ever actually get us any scoop on that. What else? I forgot what else I was gonna bring up. Anyway, that was my main point. That was the main story for the 22. Good for Steven. Best of luck. Live your dream, dude. But from everything that he said in this previous Stacking Denny's, man, dude, that is rough. It's basically just any other. As I said, I don't want to necessarily be an asshole, but if it was anybody else, I'd be like, yeah, just another bum in the back. First off, Steven, second ever start, has never had a green flag pit stop or a pit stop in general, a live pit stop. So he's going to struggle coming down pit lane. He's going to struggle being in traffic. This is going to be a very difficult race. He's probably going to get moved around a lot. Honestly, I would put money on the 22. I would put money on him spinning out. I would honestly feel more comfortable putting more money on Steven DNF in this race than finishing the race. That's just how it is. Secondly, real quick, in the same vein of hey, NASCAR, what do you do related to the driver kind of related to gambling? Where's that line there? Where's the transparency? Another question I've been wondering, and I'll end the Truck Series video on this one, is, hey, Bob Pockris, I don't want to tweet at him because he's got bigger issues to fucking answer. But, hey, did they ever put a rule in to prohibit drivers from fucking fans? Nobody ever talks about that. I haven't heard it in a long time. But, clearly there's a rule against it, right? Because, look, Stewart is on the record saying he's only there to race, make money, and fuck. Okay? Dale Earnhardt would have sex with people in the infield of races, or at the infield of racetracks. Okay? Several drivers, 70s, 80s, and 90s, were banging chicks, or if you swing gay, if you want to swing towards guys, I don't care. I just want to know, does NASCAR prohibit? What if the driver has an NDA? What if they do it off the property? Can we ask the real questions here? Who in NASCAR now, is anybody soliciting fans? What? Anyway, I've been curious about that for a very long time. I doubt anybody will ever ask that, and I doubt anybody will ever get an answer on that. But look, I've been curious on that. I've been curious about what NASCAR does with somebody related to gambling, like very similar to this close, in a very similar situation. Not saying Stephen Wood, but in my head, if you're looking to rig a race or help a buddy win a lot of money, it's not going to be the big teams. You're not going to have some idiot from Hendrick Motorsports. You're not going to have like Alex Bowman turn somebody so his family wins some money. No, it's the fucking guy it's the backmarker cars that have nothing to lose. What's that? I know my buddy has $1,000 on Zane Smith to win the race, and he's in second right now. And yeah, of course I'm gonna fucking block the guy in first, so my buddy can there's a big gray area, unknown area, whatever the case may be, that we just haven't ever really talked about. And NASCAR, I'd like to hear about both these. Answer me both these questions. And anyway, I'll see you guys for the Xfinity Series video. See you later.